video, Past Papers 101 with Miss Edwards, and today I have a special video for you. We'll be looking at a specimen paper, a paper that has never been done before. You've never seen it anywhere before, because this paper is actually in the new revised syllabus that has just been put out by CSEC to be used for integrated science for 2025. So this is just a paper that CSEC would have made, added it to the syllabus, and through my observations, I think the questions can help you to prepare for your exams that you have in a few days. Now, if you've never sat the integrated science exam before, this paper lasts for a total of 2.5 hours, and you have that time to complete 6 questions in 2 sections. So let's get straight into the paper, because you guys have a lot of work to do. Remember, all the questions on the integrated science exam are a must. You cannot choose which questions to answer. You must answer all questions. So the first section, section A, let's go. Answer all 4 questions. On landfills, fires can get started and thick clouds of smoke can be seen. The smoke affects the community which lives nearby. Define the term diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of particles from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration. That's 1 mark. The next question asks, outline how the process of diffusion would have contributed to the impact on the community. There is a high concentration of smoke in the landfill and a low concentration in the community. The particles will move from an area of high concentration, which is in the landfill, to the concentration, to the community, which has a low concentration of particles, and that could affect the community members, and that's for 2 marks. So good so far, right? The next question, the process of diffusion can also occur in the cells of living organisms. Figure 1 shows the diagram of a cell in a living organism. So we have a cell, parts labeled W, X, Y, and Z, and the question they're asking, what are the structures you're gonna label? W is the cell membrane, X is the nucleus, Y is the mitochondrion, and Z is the cytoplasm. So guys, please revisit cells. Those topics are from grade 10. Don't forget what you would have learned in grade 10. That's a total of 4 marks, 4 easy marks, right guys? Next part of the question says, figure 2 shows current flowing through 2 circuits. Circuit A shows current flowing normally, and circuit B shows current flowing in a short circuit. So we have circuit A and circuit B. Now the question says, Johnny plugged an appliance into a power strip which had 5 other appliances plugged in. As soon as he plugged in the 6th appliance, the power in the house went out. Explain the role of the fuse in ensuring Johnny's safety. So we have some electricity and lighting here. As soon as a short circuit occurs, guys, current flows in the live and earth wires instead of the live and neutral wires. This current is higher as most of the resistance is bypassed. This causes the fuse to blow and the circuit to break. If no earth wires was connected and someone touches the appliance, they can receive an electric shock. So you must know what the fuse is for in any electrical appliance. Whenever there is an high current passing through the circuit, the fuse is going to blow and prevent current from flowing to the rest of your appliance. So this is like a defense mechanism in a case where we might have over more current over supplied to the circuit. So that's for 3 marks. The next part of the question says, using the formula P equals IV, calculate the power in a circuit with a current of 1500 A's and a voltage of 25 V's. You must show your working, and we know A is for ampere and V is for voltage. When we see ampere, it's talking about current. When we see voltage, it's talking about voltage, right? Or V, voltage. So P equals to IV. Since you know what current is and what voltage is, you just plug it into the formula. P is equal to 1500 times 25, which gives us 37,500, and your unit, guys, must be correct. If they're asking you to calculate power, you must state that your answer is in watts. All right, so that's for 2 marks. Simple and easy. You don't even have to remember the formula out of your head. The next part of the question says, outline why thicker wires are used for overhead lines in power transmissions. Now the answer is that overhead lines carry a significant amount of power. Thick wires have less resistance and therefore they provide less chance of overheating or destroying insulation and causing electrical fire. So those wires are reinforced to carry the amount of electricity or power that they are meant to transfer. So that's for 2 marks. The next part of the question says, one of the effects of climate change in the Caribbean is a temperature change or a change in temperature. The following data was obtained from the Meteorological Office for a 9-month period. The table shows us all the information we need to know. Temperature readings in the Caribbean over 9 months. Months are January, February, March, straight down to September. And temperature is in degrees Celsius, so it's giving us all the different temperature readings from the month of January to September. Now the question says, on the grid provided on page 7, plot a line graph of temperature versus month to represent the data in table 1. You must label the axes, and this is a total of 10 marks. Now guys, 10 marks is a whole lot to lose if you see a question like this on your exam. So let's look at the graph and then we're going to see how it should pan out. And the next part of the question actually says, state one valid conclusion which can be made from the graph, but honestly you can look at the table and see that conclusion. Look at the temperature reading straight through from January to September. 23, then 25, 27, 32, 35, 37, 38, 39, 40. The overall conclusion would be that temperature increased for every month from January to September, and that's for 1 mark. So let's go to this 10-mark graph. Now they actually gave us a blank graph this time in this specimen paper, but guys, you don't have to worry. On an actual exam paper, they usually fill in all of these information for you. The most they'll ask you to do is to actually label your axes, and you must remember that your axes, guys, these are the horizontal and vertical areas. Right down here where you see months is your x-axis, and the vertical one going up with the numbers is your y-axis. So guys, please make sure you know your axes. Now we would put months on our x-axis because it is the independent variable, so it can stand on its own. Your dependent variable usually goes on your y-axis, so we put temperature there. So all we did was just make sure we had an appropriate scale, and then we plotted our points. So for January, it said that the temperature reading was 23 degrees Celsius. So all we did, we found where January is on our graph. We go up, we put our point where 23 is, and we circle. Now guys, how do you find 23 here? If this is 20 and all the way up here is 25, 21, 22, 23 and 24 must fall somewhere in between both numbers. And what we can see is that, okay, if this is 20 and up here is 25, which has an increment of 10 smaller squares, it can tell us that all we need to do is divide 10 by 2 to get the 5, right? So this is 20, so this would be 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So this is why this is recorded as 23. For February, it was 25 degrees Celsius, so we put it on the line where it meets up with February. For March, temperature readings were 27, so let's go 25, 26, 27. For April, it was actually 31, 32 degrees Celsius, and that's what we did for all of the points until we got to September. Now guys, when you are finished plotting your points, you're going to need to connect the dots. Now depending on the shape of your graph, or if the question asks you for a specific type of line, right, then you would know what to do. Now in a case like this, we realize that our points are kind of in a curved, a slight curve. So what we would do is just free draw or freehand, use your freehand to draw a line to connect the points or to actually show the pattern. If the question had asked you to do a line of best fit, then you would actually need to use a ruler for that. But in this case, you're just connecting your points to fit your smooth curve, and that's it. So guys, they're basically marking you for plotting all these points, for actually putting in your axes. So temperature is here on your y-axis and months are on your x-axis. You would have made a scale. So all of that would give you your 10 marks. Now guys, you don't have to work so hard in your exams, but remember, I tell you all the time, if you know you struggle with the graph, there are too many marks there to lose. Please make sure you put in some graph practice before you step your foot in that integrated science exam. They are coming with a graph. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. So that's for 10 marks. So let's move on to question 2. So we're completing question 1, we're at 2. It says Anna's class went on a field trip to a farm. Farmer Navid's main cash crops are yams and sweet potatoes, which he rotates with tomatoes, then beans. The farmer also cultivates flowers and keeps honeybees. Identify the term which best defines each of the following. The process by which pollen grains are transferred from anthers to receptive stigma. Pollination would be the answer for that. The next one, the process by which male and female gametes fuse. Fertilization would be the correct answer for that one. And the process by which seeds begin to grow would be germination, and that's for 1 mark. So guys, do not sleep on reproduction and germination and growth. Those are topics that you might just see in your exam. Now, bee populations in the world are decreasing. Explain why this would be devastating news for farmer Navid. Now, farmers depend on the action of pollinators such as the bees in order for their crops to increase yield. Bees are necessary for pollination. Pollination is necessary for fertilization and fruit formation. Without pollination, Farmer Navid would not have any tomatoes or beans. So guys, this speaks specifically to Farmer Navid because the question asks you to explain why it would be devastating for him as a farmer. But in general, we always need pollinators because they are necessary for fruit and food production. Always remember that, and to explain that would have given you 3 marks. The next part of the question says, the farmer told the students that he grew his yams from cuttings. State 2 advantages and 1 disadvantage of growing crops using cuttings as a method of vegetative propagation. Now, the advantages are that they are more likely to survive because they're taken from a healthy plant and they do not have to go through germination. So guys, when you are actually planting a new crop, right, and you're not going to start from seed, it does reduce the amount of time it would take for you to get a completely healthy new plant. So it cuts the time that it would take to get a new plant. 2, they have the identical characteristics of the parent plant, ensuring quality if the parent is of good quality. So guys, I always say when we look at vegetative propagation or asexual reproduction for plants in this case, when we look at the fact that they are identical to their parents, it can be an advantage if the parents are of good quality. But if the parents are of bad quality, then the child or the offspring would also become bad quality. So you must know how to state it if you want it to work for you as an advantage and as a disadvantage. So the disadvantage for this is that all the plants will have the same genetic makeup, so all of them will be susceptible to the same disease in the case of an outbreak. So that would give you your total 3 marks. Next part of the question says, Kendra went to a beach cookout on a moonlit night. She noticed that the breeze was flowing from the land to the sea rather than what she was used to during the day when the breeze came from the sea. Distinguish between heat and temperature. Now, heat is a form of energy, whereas temperature measures how hot or how cold an object is, and just for telling them that, 2 marks. The next part of the question says, identify the type of heat transfer responsible for what Kendra observed, and that would be convection. The next part of the question says, explain how the heat is transferred using the method of heat transfer identified. With convection, warm air rises and cool air falls. During the day, the land is hotter than sea, so the warm air over the land rises and the air from the sea rushes toward the land to replace it. This is called sea breeze. During the night, though, the land cools quicker than the sea, so the warm air over the sea rises and air over the land rushes out to replace it. This is actually called a land breeze. So guys, please make sure you know what you are doing when it comes on to the different types of breeze, because it's something that they always look at when we're looking at heat transfer or heat transfer, conduction, convection, and radiation. I know it's a topic that sometimes we skip over, but ladies and gentlemen, you still need to know land and sea breeze, how they are formed. So remember again, warm air rises, cool air falls. During the day, the land is gonna be hotter than the sea, so the warm air over the land will rise and the air from the sea would rush toward the land to replace that warm air that had risen. This is called the sea breeze, and it usually happens during the day. Now during the night, the land cools quicker than the sea, so the warm air over the sea will rise and the air in the land will rush out to replace it, and this is called land breeze. So we're good to go, guys. We're on our way. Third question, we're at question 3. Water is essential for life due to its unique properties. List 3 physical properties of water that makes water essential to life. 1, it boils at 100 degrees Celsius. 2, it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. And 3, it has a high specific heat capacity. 3 marks for those answers, guys. Commercial fishing provides a livelihood for many in the Caribbean. Explain 1 negative impact of pollution of the ocean on commercial farming. Now, pollution introduces harmful substances which are ingested by fishes. This can lead to the death of fishes, which depletes the fish stock, as well as contamination of seafood, making it unsafe to consume. So guys, your common sense could help you with this, because we all love to eat seafood. So why would we not want to eat seafood that is coming from polluted waters? So once you speak about that, then it can make your answer, and that would be an easy 3 marks for you. Next part of the question says, the process of excretion is extremely important in preventing the accumulation of harmful substances in the body. And accumulation there just means build up, guys. Define the term excretion. Excretion is a process by which organisms get rid of metabolic waste. That's 1 mark. Now, Rashawn drank a large glass of water at 12:30 p.m. The volume of urine was recorded at 35 or 30 minutes intervals for 150 minutes. The results obtained are shown in table 2. Now, table 2 shows us the volume of urine in 30-minute intervals. So it says the time is 30 minutes, 60, 90, 120, and 150. And the volume of urine is given for all of those times. Determine the changes you would expect to see in the volume of urine if Rashawn drank twice the amount of water between 30 minutes and 150 minutes. Guys, if it says that he's gonna drink double the water or drink twice the amount, then it also would suggest to us that the volume of his urine would double every 30-minute interval. So if at 30 minutes he only produced 20 centimeters cubed of urine, if he drank double the amount of water, then he would be producing 40 centimeters cube of water, all right, of urine. Next part says, explain the role of antidiuretic hormone or ADH in regulating the water balance in the body if Rashawn doubled the amount of water consumed. Now guys, don't skip over, you know, excretion. ADH, right? This hormone, even if you don't remember antidiuretic hormone, at least try to remember the ADH. It is not going to be produced because of the large amount of water consumed. This response helps to get rid of excess water, so the osmotic balance in the cells are maintained. So guys, how this works is that this hormone basically controls the amount of water that is kept in your body or that is released in the form of urine. If you do not drink enough water, it's going to be produced and your body will hold on to all of the water that you have, or most of it, and that's why you produce a little bit of urine when you're dehydrated. If you drink a lot of water, then the hormone is not going to be produced because your body would have extra, and so the body doesn't see where it needs to hold on to this excess, and so the water is going to be allowed to leave. And that's why when you're fully hydrated or you drink a lot of water, you produce a lot of urine. Please go over this, guys. So for this question, the ADH is not going to be produced because he's drinking more water and the body doesn't really want to hold on to any excess water. I hope I explained that for you so you could understand. But you can always pause the video, go back, go to your textbook, go to other videos, research this if you feel the need that you need to study it more in depth. And this would give you 3 marks. We're coming down nicely. In the Caribbean, our major source of energy is provided by fossil fuels. However, there are many adverse effects associated with the use of fossil fuels. State one advantage and one disadvantage with the use of solar energy as a replacement for the use of fossil fuels. The advantage is that solar energy is readily available and free, guys. It's free. Solar energy does not contribute to pollution. That's another advantage, right? Disadvantage is that solar energy and its efficiency is dependent on the weather. So guys, if you're not getting the sunlight, you're not going to get as much energy, or it's not going to be as efficient as you would want it. The next part of the question says, other than solar and hydroelectric energy, state 2 alternative sources of energy which can be utilized within the Caribbean. We have wind energy and geothermal energy, and that's a total of 2 marks. We're at question 4. State 2 purposes for launching satellites. Now guys, satellites is this topic that you find at the very, very, very back of your syllabus and your textbook. So sometimes you don't look over it. If you can brush it, if you can just preps it, that would be good, because we really and truly don't know what they're going to be putting on the exam you're studying for. State 2 purposes for launching satellites. You must give 1 example for the purpose stated. Now guys, satellites are those things when you're watching those movies, you see them up there, and the reason for them, these mechanical objects, is for navigation. So your GPS, it helps to locate the position of vehicles, ships and aircrafts. That's why you can go on Google Maps and you can actually see the roads to places that you've never been if you need navigation help. The next thing is for surveillance, military surveillance. So the government can obtain dates and pictures for military purposes, and also to actually keep an eye on enemy lines. The next purpose, right, or example, and its purpose is for weather observation and forecasting. So this is to track storms and study weather patterns. So in the Caribbean, we know we experience a lot of hurricanes. So one of the ways in which we can actually track a hurricane, tell you how large it is, the direction it's going in, is all because of satellites. So make sure you at least know something about satellites, guys, and that will give you 4 marks. Describe what occurs during a lunar eclipse. And if you've been keeping up, we have been having some lunar eclipses and solar eclipses. We've just been having eclipses back these past 2 years. And so I think it's good to know the Earth is positioned exactly between the moon and the sun. Earth's shadow falls on the surface of the moon, dimming it sometimes, turning the lunar surface a striking red over a few hours. So what we have happening is that the moon is going to be is going to be positioned exactly between the moon and the sun, and the Earth's shadow is going to be casted on the moon, and that's how we have a lunar eclipse. See if you can go to the to that part of your syllabus. It's not a topic we really see a lot of, but as I said, guys, we can never know. So let's go down to the next part of the question. Part B of that question says the table below shows the energy requirements for some activities. Identify all the activities from the table that will require a diet that is high in carbohydrates, and I have bicycling there, but aerobic exercise should also be there. So bicycling and aerobic exercise would warrant your 1 mark. All right, guys. Now the next part of the question says justify the statement that there is no single diet that will work for everyone. There is no single diet that will work for everyone. Each person may have different energy requirements based on different factors such as their gender and physical activity, as well as their age. And based on the table, right, each activity has a different energy requirement, so the diet would be determined by the activities a person is engaged in. So guys, we always say a construction worker would not have the same diet as a person who is doing the office jobs. It just would not require the same amount of energy. The next part of the question says Mary's doctor told her her blood type is O negative, and she was concerned when her doctor mentioned negative. Outline to Mary the meaning of the term O negative in terms of blood type. Now, type O blood refers to the blood group or with no antigen A or B on the red blood cell, and antibodies A and B are present in the blood plasma. The negative refers to the absence of what we call the rhesus factor, which is a type of antigen found in the red blood cell, right? So guys, that's something you either know or you don't know. Try and go back to transport when your teacher would have been teaching you to remember what the rhesus factor is all about, the different blood types, blood groups. If you haven't studied anything on those yet, you can just go and, you know, do a little sweep over, so at least know some of the basics, because I know that time is of the essence and you might want to focus on those that you actually have a great understanding of. But it's also good to just look back at what you would have covered before. Now the next part of the question says Mary's first child was born O positive. Explain why the doctors would be concerned if her second fetus were O positive as well. Now, when she was pregnant with her first child, her body may have produced what we call anti-Rh antibodies. If she were to get pregnant a second time with a rhesus positive baby, these antibodies will cross the placenta and attack the baby's red blood cells, causing anemia and other health concerns for the baby. Now, this might seem like a mouthful, guys, but basically what it's saying is because the mother's blood type was negative and the first baby's blood type was positive, the body would have seen that there is some incompatibility, so it would have produced some antibodies against rhesus positive. Now, but it would not have done anything to that first baby. Now, if she got pregnant the second time and the second baby would be rhesus positive, those antibodies that would have been produced first will attack this new baby. Guys, just go back if you remember your teacher talking about this or not. It's something that I think you should know. We're at section B, so we're coming down nicely, guys. If you have not liked the video, if you have not subscribed, if you have not sent this to a friend of a friend of a friend, what are you doing? You can't get the only grade 1. There's not just one grade 1 there. It's for everybody. Help someone to get their grade for the exam season. Yes, you're doing all you can, but it's never, there is no harm. It's never a bad thing to help those who you know for a fact are struggling. So send them the video, guys. We are here to help all persons. So section B, question 5, define the term gas exchange as it relates to respiration in humans. Gaseous exchange is when carbon dioxide diffuses out of blood into alveoli and oxygen diffuses from lungs into blood. Now the reason why it's like that is because it says in relation to respiration in humans, right? But if it had just said what's gaseous exchange, you could just say the exchange of carbon dioxide for oxygen, right? Say 2 gases that humans inhale from the atmosphere other than oxygen. Now answers there could be nitrogen, some carbon dioxide. I'm thinking if there is any other right now. Nitrogen and carbon dioxide are good ones to go with. If you can find any more, so be it. The next one lists 2 products of anaerobic respiration in yeast. The answers there are lactic acid and carbon dioxide. Now, Mr. Kai is an ice cream fanatic, and while he was in a conversation with an ice cream vendor, he was told that ice creams contain several food dyes. State one suitable separation technique that Mr. Kai could use to identify the different dyes in ice cream. Now the answer there would be paper chromatography. Explain how the technique will separate the different dyes. Now, because the ice cream contains dyes, paper chromatography is suitable for the separation of colors. It involves separating a mixture of these pigments and using a suitable solvent in which all the different pigments will move at different rates. So if you've done this as an experiment with your teacher, you know you get chromatography paper, you draw a little line on the bottom of the strip of the paper. You would put a little bit of that ice cream in the middle or the center of the line, and then you would place the paper in your solvent. It could be water, it could be alcohol, whatever solvent you're using, and you make sure that that liquid, that solvent, does not cross the line or touch your little dye that you're testing, and you leave it there. And what you should see is that over time the colors should be separating or traveling upwards on that strip of paper. Paper chromatography is a lovely lab. Just if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. So try and be familiar as much as possible, guys, with some of these experimental skills or the labs that you would have done. Don't just throw them away. With the SBA, you still need to retain some of that information. Now the next part says Mrs. Harris bought a new stainless steel cookware set to replace her aluminum cookware pots. List 3 properties of metals. Now metals conduct heat well. Metals conduct electricity. Metals are malleable and metals are ductile. Malleable just means you can shape them, and ductile means we can draw them into wires, right? The next part of the question says explain why stainless steel is superior to aluminium for cooking pots. Now stainless steel pots are less prone to corrosion than aluminium pots, which means that they will last for much longer periods, making them a cost-effective option. Stainless steels can also withstand very high heat. They are durable and they are quick and easy to clean. So if you know of the benefits of cookware material, please make sure you retain some of that knowledge for your exam, right? In 2020, and we're at question 6, the final question of this specimen paper. In 2020, there was a worldwide outbreak of the communicable disease COVID-19. Define the term communicable disease. Now, a communicable disease is one that is spread from one person to another through a variety of ways that include contact with blood, body fluids, breathing, etc. Part 2 of the question: explain how the principle of immunization is used to control the spread of communicable diseases. Now, immunity is achieved by injecting small amounts of dead or weakened antigens in the body. This stimulates the body to produce antibodies which help to fight the infection. So whenever the person comes in contact with the pathogen, it is protected. So guys, it might seem like a mouthful, but basically what we're saying is when you go for a vaccine, right, in that vaccine they are actually giving you a weakened version of whatever disease they want to vaccinate you against. So when those babies go in for their vaccinations, we realize that when they go home, they're usually running a high fever, they're crying a lot after their injections, but this is because their body is actually fighting against whatever weakened version of the disease the doctors would have injected. Now, the body does this by making what we call antibodies, and I just tell my students antibodies are like antibiotics for humans. They're naturally made by the body to help fight diseases for you. So it's like your body is making its own medicine. So what happens is if you come in contact with the disease again, your body would have already had the medicine, the antibody to fight for you so you don't get sick, or even if you do get sick, the symptoms would be way less, but it is there to protect you. Now, Caribbean governments are now struggling with an urgent and large-scale solid waste problem, with landfills being overfilled and irregular collection of garbage. Residents have resorted to alternate methods of disposing their garbage, such as throwing in rivers and on the roads, as well as burning. The most common type of waste is plastic bottles, cartons, and containers. State 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of using plastics. Now, the advantages: plastic is easy to produce, plastic is durable, plastic is readily accessible. But the disadvantages are that burning them releases toxins in the environment, so they're bad for the environment, and the length of time it takes to degrade is very long, way more than a human lifespan, and it's very harmful to marine life. So whatever disadvantage you can think of, you can write it there for plastics. The next part of the question says, suggest one possible consequence of the effect that improper waste disposal for residents. You must give a reason for your suggestion. Now, there may be an increase in the spread of pathogenic microorganisms and parasites, as improper disposal will lead to an increase in the pest population. So when we don't get rid of our waste properly, we stand the risk of inviting rodents and other small creatures into our spaces, right? And they can lead to disease, etc. Now, the last part of the question says, figure 3 shows a bar chart with the kilowatt hour of electricity consumed by 3 different sources of light. So A, B, and C over 1,000-hour period. So we have the energy consumed, kilowatt hours, and the artificial light source being A, B, and C. Now identify which of the artificial light sources is most likely an LED light bulb. And an LED actually helps to save a lot of electricity. So we have A being our answer there. State which of the artificial light sources would transfer the most energy in a 5-minute period. The answer would be C, because it is actually consuming the most energy. And remember guys, energy cannot be lost or created, it can only be transferred. And then the last section says, name 3 other artificial light sources other than LED light bulbs. We have filament lamps or incandescent bulbs, compact fluorescent bulbs or CFLs, and fluorescent tubes. And guys, that is the end of this specimen paper. Did you like the questions? Did they seem harder than a regular past paper? Well, all I'm suggesting for you is that you practice, study hard, I know you can do this. You've been watching your videos, you've been taking your notes, you've been attending your classes. You got this. So I pray that you will do well on your exams. Please remember to like and share this video. And remember, guys, with God, all results can be distinctions. All the best, and I'll see you again when I have another video for you. Take care.